so far I've read about 5 or 10 books in English, and it started with Present by John Spencer, maybe the author. And the thing is, when I found an interesting book, then I would read a lot a day, like an hour a day. But it's not that easy to find a book that is just right for me. But I felt that reading an English book, speaking out loud, is quite helpful for my English. So I decided that from today, starting today, I'm going to read my book, um, recording my speaking, actually reading. So it will start today, and then I'm planning to record it. I'm planning to read it every day on a daily basis. So I'm not really sure how long it'll take to finish this book. And actually, I've read a few pages so far. So anyway, let's get started from the page that I stopped. Um, yeah, it's the page 18, and the title is The Audiovisual. Yeah. In March of 1995, a limousine carrying Ted Koppel, the host of ABC TV's Nightline, pulled up to the snow-covered curb outside Morrie's house in West Newton, Massachusetts. Morrie was in a wheelchair full-time now, getting used to helpers lifting him like a heavy sack from the chair to the bed, and the bed to the chair. He had begun to cough while eating, and chewing was a chore. His legs were dead. He would never walk again, yet he refused to be depressed. Instead, Morrie had become a lightning rod of ideas. He jotted down his thoughts on yellow pads, envelopes, folders, crepe paper. He wrote bite-sized philosophies about living with vast shadow. Accept what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. Accept the past as past without denying it or discarding it. Accept the past as past, right? Without denying it or discarding it. Learn to forgive yourself and to forgive others. Don't assume that it's too late to get involved. After a while, he had more than 50 of these aphorisms which he shared with his friends. One friend, a fellow Brandeis professor named Maury Stein, was so taken with the words that he sent them to a Boston Globe reporter who came out and wrote a long feature story on Morrie. The headline read, "A Professor's Final Course, His Own Death." The article caught the eyes of a producer from the Nightline show who brought it to Coppell in Washington, D.C. "Take a look at this," the producer said. Next thing you knew, there were cameramen in Morrie's living room, and Coppell's limousine was in front of the house. Several of Morrie's friends and family members had gathered to meet Coppell, and when the famous man entered the house, they buzzed with excitement, all except Morrie, who wheeled himself forward, raised his eyebrows, and interrupted the clamor with his high clamor with his high sing-song voice. Ted, I need to check you out before I agree to do this interview. There was an awkward moment of silence. Then the two men were ushered into the study. The door was shut. Man, one friend whispered outside the door. I hope Ted goes easy on Morrie. I hope Morrie goes easy on Ted, said the other. Inside the office, Morrie motioned for Coppel to sit down. He crossed his hands in his lap and smiled. Tell me something close to your heart, Morrie began. My heart? Tell me something close to your heart. Coppel studied the old man. All right. He said cautiously, and he spoke about his children. They were close to his heart, weren't they? Good, Morrie said. Now tell me something about your faith. Coppel was uncomfortable. I usually don't talk about such things with people I've only known a few minutes. Ted, I'm dying, Morrie said, peering over his glasses. I don't have a lot of time here. Coppel laughed. All right, faith. He quoted a passage from Marcus Aurelius, something he felt strongly about. Morrie nodded. Now let me ask you something. Coppel said. Have you ever seen my program? Morrie shrugged. Twice, I think. Twice? That's all? Don't feel bad. I've only seen Ofra once. Well, the 2 times you saw my show, what did you think? Morrie paused. To be honest, yes. I thought you were a narcissist. Coppel burst into laughter. I'm too ugly to be a narcissist. Soon the cameras were rolling in front of the living room fireplace with Coppel in his crisp blue suit and Morrie in his shaggy gray sweater. He had refused fancy clothes or makeup for this interview. His philosophy was that should not be embarrassing. He was not about to powder its nose. Because Morrie sat in the wheelchair, the camera never caught his withered legs. And because he was still able to move his hands, Morrie always spoke with both hands waving. He showed great passion when explaining how you face the end of life. Ted, he said, when all this started, I asked myself, am I gonna withdraw from the world like most people do? Or am I gonna leave? I decided I'm gonna leave, or at least try to live the way I want, with dignity, with courage, with humor, with composure. There are some mornings when I cry and mourn for myself. Some mornings I'm so angry and bitter, but it doesn't last too long. Then I get up and say, I want to leave. So far, I've been able to do it. Will I be able to continue? I don't know, but I'm betting on myself that I will. Coppel seemed extremely taken with Morrie. He asked about the humility that death induced. Well, Fred, Morrie said accidentally. Then he quickly corrected himself. Ted. Now that's inducing humility, Coppel said, laughing. The two men spoke about the afterlife. They spoke about Morrie's increasing dependency on other people. He already needed help eating and sitting and moving from place to place. What? Coppel asked. Did Morrie dread the most about his slow, insidious decay? Morrie paused. He asked if he could say this certain thing on television. Coppel said, go ahead. Morrie looked straight into the eyes of the most famous interviewer in America. Well, Ted, one day soon, someone's gonna have to wipe my ass. The program aired on a Friday night. It began with Tad Koppel from behind the desk in Washington, his voice booming with authority. Who is Murray? Who is Murray Schwartz? He said, and why? By the end of the night, are so many of you going to care about him? 1,000 miles away in my house on the hill, I was casually flipping channels. I heard these words from the TV set. Who is Morrie Schwartz? And went numb. By the end of the night, are so many of you going to care about him? It is our first class together in the spring of 1976. I enter Morrie's large office and notice the seemingly countless books that line the wall, shelf after shelf. Books on sociology, philosophy, religion, psychology. There is a large rock on the hardwood floor and a window that looks out on the campus walk. Only a dozen or so students are there, fumbling with notebooks and syllabi. Most of them wear jeans and earth shoes and plaid flannel shirts. I tell myself it will not be easy to cut a class this small. Cut a class this small? Maybe I shouldn't take it. Mitchell, Morrie says, reading from the attendance list. I raise a hand. Do you prefer Mitch or Mitchell better? I have never been asked this by a teacher. I do a double take at this guy in his yellow turtleneck and green corduroy pants, the silver hair that falls on his forehead. He's smiling. Mitch, I say. Mitch is what my friends call me. Well, Mitch, it is then. Morrie says, as if closing a deal. And Mitch, yes, I hope that one day you will think of me as your friend. It is our first class together. In the spring of 1976, I enter Morrie's large office and notice the seemingly countless books that line the wall, shelf after shelf. Books on sociology, philosophy, religion, psychology. There is a large rock on the hardwood floor and a window that looks out on the campus walk. Only a dozen or so students are there, fumbling with notebooks and syllabi. Most of them wear jeans and earth shoes and plaid flannel shirts. I tell myself it'll not be easy to cut a class this small. Maybe I shouldn't take it. Mitchell, the orientation. As I turned the rental car onto Murray Street in West Newton, a quiet suburb of Boston, I had a cup of coffee. Cup of coffee in one hand and a cellular phone between my ear and shoulder. I was talking to a TV producer about a piece we were doing. My eyes jumped from the digital clock. My return flight was in a few hours. To the mailbox numbers on the three-lined suburban street. The car radio was on the all news station. This was how I operated. 5 things at once. Rolled back the tape. I said to the producer, "Let me hear that part again, okay?" He said, "It's gonna take a second." Suddenly, I was upon the house. I paused the brakes, spilling coffee in my lap, As the car stopped, I caught a glimpse of a large Japanese maple tree and three figures sitting near it in the driveway. A young man and a middle-aged woman flanking a small old man in a wheelchair, Morrie. At the sight of my old professor, I froze. Hello, the producer said in my ear. Did I lose you? As I turned to rental car, as I turned the rental car on Morrie Street in West Newton, I had not seen him in 16 years. His hair was thinner, nearly white, and his face was gaunt. I suddenly felt unprepared for this reunion. For one thing, I was stuck on the phone, and I hoped that he hadn't noticed my arrival so that I could drive around the block a few more times, finish my business, get mentally ready. But Morrie, this new, withered version of a man I had once known so well, was smiling at the car, hand folded in his lap, waiting for me to emerge. Hey, the producer said again. Are you there? For all the time we'd spent together, for all the kindness and patience Morrie had shown me when I was young. I should have dropped the phone and jumped from the car, run and held him and kissed him hello. Instead, I killed the engine and sunk down off the seat as if I were looking for something. Yeah, I'm here, I whispered, and continued my conversation with the TV producer until we were finished. I did what I had become best at doing. I did what I had become best at doing. I attended to my work, even while my dying professor waited on his front lawn. I am not proud of this, but that is what I did. Now, 5 minutes later, Morrie was hugging me, his thinning hair rubbing against my cheek. I had told him I was searching for my keys. That's what had taken me so long in the car, and I squeezed him tighter, as if I could crush my little eye. Although the spring sunshine was warm, he wore a windbreaker and his legs were covered by a blanket. He smelled faintly sour, the way people on medication sometimes do. With his face pressed close to mine, I could hear his labored breathing in my ear. My old friend, he whispered, you've come back at last. He rocked against me, not letting go, his hands reaching up for my elbows as I bent over him. I was surprised at such affection after all these years. But then, in the stone walls I had built between my present and my past. But then, in the stone walls I had built between my present and my past, I had forgotten how close we once were. I had forgotten how close we once were. I remembered graduation day, the briefcase, his tears at my departure, and I swallowed because I knew deep down that I was no longer the good gift-bearing student he remembered. I only hoped that for the next few hours I could fool him. Inside the house, we sat at a walnut dining room table near a window that looked out on the neighbor's house. Morrie fussed with his wheelchair, trying to get comfortable as was his custom. He wanted to feed me. As was his custom, he wanted to feed me, and I said all right. One of the helpers, a stout Italian woman named Connie, cut up bread and tomatoes and brought containers of chicken salad, hummus, and tabbouleh. She also brought some pills. Morrie looked at them and sighed. His eyes were more sunken than I remembered them, and his cheekbones more pronounced. This gave him a harsher, older look, until he smiled, of course, and the sagging cheeks gathered up like curtains. Ah, until he smiled, of course, and the sagging cheeks gathered up like curtains. Mitch, he said softly, you know that I'm dying. I knew. All right, then. Morrie swallowed the pills, put down the paper cup, inhaled deeply, then let it out. Shall I tell you what it's like? What it's like to die? Yes, he said. Although I was unaware of it, our last class had just begun. It is my freshman year. Morrie is older than most of the teachers, and Morrie is older than most of the teachers, and I'm younger than most of the students, having left high school a year early to compensate for my youth on campus. I wear old gray sweatshirts and box in a locker gym and walk around with an unlit cigarette in my mouth. Even though I do not smoke, I drive a beat up Mercury Cougar with the windows down and the music up. I seek my identity in toughness, but it is Murray's softness that draws me. And because he does not look at me as a kid trying to be something more than I am, I relax. I finished that first course with him and enrolled for another. He is an easy marker. He does not much care for grades. One year, they say during the Vietnam War, Morrie gave all his male students A's to help them keep their student deferment. I begin to call Morrie coach the way I used to address my high school track coach. Morrie likes the nickname. Coach, he says. All right, I'll be your coach, and you can be my player. You can play all the lovely parts of life that I'm too old for now. Sometimes we eat together in the cafeteria. Morrie, to my delight, is even more of a slope than I am. He talks instead of chewing, laughs with his mouth open, delivers a passionate thought through a mouthful of egg salad. The little yellow pieces